Hey everybody! So we're back with a live breaking the 180 right here from Century City. We were at the
Yes,
AMC for a sneak peek of quite an eloquent piece of filmmaking that speaks to our condition in the modern world.
auteur filmmaking at its
Auteur
finest.
filmmaking. Of course, we're talking about the Marvels.
That's right, the
So,
Marvels.
so I jest, of course. I'm
But
half jesting.
interestingly, this is actually
Oh,
our second film. Give me one
it's
second.
windy out here. Uh, so to quickly give you guys a sense what we just saw, um, I know Sebastian started saying something, but it's windy out here,
Oh,
so
it's
some of our
yeah. I had
equipment
to go
blow.
pick something up. This is actually our second film of the day. We
Yes,
started with, believe it or not, Eli Roth's Thanksgiving, which we can't talk about right now because they have an embargo. But
but
let's just say that Eli Roth won the evening. This is
yeah,
not a joke.
no,
I
yeah,
legitimately cannot believe I had so much fun at that. If anyone had seen Violent Night from last year, we're starting to see a little bit of a resurgence of like high grade B movies.
yeah. This was it had spirit, and it's kind of a return to form for Roth. He's been gone from the scene for a couple of years, but more on that later because there's
Yes,
actually an
but
embargo. But onto the Marvels, I will just quickly start by saying that it's not as bad as Ant-Man Quantumania or Thor Love and Thunder, but at the same time,
nothing can sink lower than Thor: Love and Thunder. That might
yeah.
be the worst thing Marvel has ever made.
At the same time, this also isn't anything groundbreaking or that adds much to the MCU.
Well, there are a couple things to
Yeah,
keep in mind. It's at this point, and it's been a couple years at least, except for James Gunn's stuff. It's very hard to talk about these as serious movies. To quote Brian Cox from Succession, you are not serious people, or in this case, you're not a serious movie. In which, and what I mean by that, it's a factory farm
yeah,
that Kevin Feige is running at Marvel. Walking in, I mean, we were talking about it driving from our screening at the little Dolby Center.
the Adobe
That
Lab. Burbank.
what
Yeah,
I'm expecting is McDonald's, and I know I've
yes,
used that analogy a lot, but when I'm getting a Big Mac or chicken nuggets from McDonald's, you know exactly what it's going to taste like. You know exactly how much it's going to fill you. You pretty much know exactly how much it's going to cost. And once you eat it, you might be satisfied for that evening, but you're not having gourmet food. It's not going to resonate with you. It's not going to be a meal you talk about. But if you get that, okay, and then you move on.
yeah. This movie, to me, it felt very basic. It's a very basic superhero adaptation. I would even compare it to '90s movies. I've been saying that a lot, but I think it's also because there's a lot of elder millennials directing these days. So a lot of things feel like the '90s. But this one, I would seriously compare it to '90s movies like The Phantom, or
Or Albert Pyun's Captain America,
yes, the famous straight to video Captain America that's been rediscovered.
starring John Dillinger's
Yeah.
son.
Yes, no, that's you know
And
what
not
though.
John Dillinger, sorry, Matt Dillinger.
Oh yes, yes, yes.
John Dillinger is someone else we'll be talking about in our Michael
I
Mann
was I was about
series.
to say like was his offspring in the business? No, but
Matt
ser-
Dillinger,
but
Catcher in the Rye.
but in general, I thought this was like an enjoyable on a surface basic level '90s popcorn superhero movie where you might have even caught it back in the day on video when everything else was rented at Blockbuster.
Or even more so, you caught it on cable and you have
Yes.
vague memories that you saw it. And when you tell people about what was in the movie, people think you're on drugs.
Yeah.
Because there were moments when I leaned over to Alice and I said, "Am I on drugs?"
Well,
There's some weird choices in this movie.
not to spoil too much, but this was now Marvel firmly is a Disney uh, product because there's a dance and song number in the movie that sounds and looks yanked out of a like the live action Aladdin or something, and and that's actually one of the better moments in the
It's
movie in
true.
terms of sheer comedy. Yeah.
It's true, and they have lots of kitties, which always take the win. But
You know what that made me think of? Marvel. Marvel has got to the point where they're literally tapping now into the current zeitgeist obsession with cat memes.
it's true.
They literally resort to cat memes by the end of the movie. We won't totally spoil how, but they even wink at Cats, the musical,
It's true.
in the
It's
third
true.
act. Yeah,
But I don't know. It's just look. I had a feeling of what this would be, and it didn't exceed. It didn't lower. It just was what it was with a few good moments. But it's just sad to see that this is what some people consider filmmaking because yeah, I mean in one sense yes, a whole cast and crew show up, the grips get paid, union strong and all that, but I mean the actors, Samuel L. Jackson actually had more fun here than in anything he's done recently, but like
yeah,
our three Marvels are just kind of like
yeah.
they're literally just reciting basic ass dialogue. There's no passion behind it. There are a lot of single shots of them standing in front of a green screen.
It's
Nothing offensive, but it's just like
like I said, it's a very basic action movie. It's a very basic superhero thing, and
especially
uh,
compared to the movie we saw earlier today, which is like
yeah, this one really is pure filler for Marvel. If you grew up
well,
with comic books, and we mentioned this after the movie, it feels like those issues that you would pick up as a kid that didn't really add much else to the general plot.
it's
It's
like a
just kind
one
of yeah,
issue. It's a one issue book that they got. A couple of writers just
yeah.
had an idea to do something, and then I mean the actual plot of this MCU phase. I don't even know what phase they're in. Is in the end credits. Now the end credits scene is definitely worth watching. Not a zip from us on what it is,
It's the
but
best part of the
it's
movie.
the best
I
part of
mean,
the
it's not a
movie.
joke. It is the best
It's
part of the
just,
movie.
I mean, the good news is I think in the last couple years, audiences, yes, these movies still make money, but a lot of audiences are also saying we don't really want to see this anymore. There's more interesting stuff out there, and you all should feel that way too. It's I mean, right now in
Yeah.
the same theater, Alexander Payne's The Holdovers is playing, and it's one of the best films of the year. It's a really beautiful coming of age story for all the
Yeah.
characters in there. It's like support the flaws and all this. You can't even talk about it as something with flaws. It's just again, it's the
It's
McDonald's. It's like trying to critique. It's like if a food critic walks into McDonald's and tries to pick apart the taste of the chicken nuggets
it's
or the
bas-
barbecue sauce. What can you do? What can you do with that?
it's
Nothing.
it's basically I think Marvel is starting to crack under its own weight, and
Oh, it
they're
has
trying
for
to
years,
they're
but the
trying
glass
to
is about to shatter, my friend.
yeah. So they're trying to figure out what how to continue the narrative that they've established and don't really know how to connect. So
Ooh, we got a
the
question
result,
from Benny. Hey Benny, good to see ya. He said, "Was it better than the first Brie Larson Marvel movie?" It's hard to use the word
yeah,
better,
it,
but I'm gonna say that
a
the
little
the
bit.
couple interesting, like really interesting things they do in there
I
might
actually,
elevate it.
you know what? This one did not surpass the first one in. So not as good as the latest. Oh my god! No, of course, no. Two totally different
Like,
audiences, though. Let's be
oh yeah,
honest. I think the
there was
audience going to this is not
there
going
was an
to.
old guy in the row in front of us who was having the time of his life. Like
Yes,
I have never
yes,
seen
yes. There
anyone
was
that
this guy in
excited.
front of us who was just so
But
excited.
uh, but
But to go to Benny's point real quick, you know what this movie lacked too in comparison to the first Brie Larson movie?
Vision.
Well, I really liked the soundtrack in the first one because the first one knew how to use Nirvana and Hole and those bands. This one felt very mundane and very stale in its visual and soundtrack choices. Um, it's almost like they just weren't even trying; they were just phoning it in.
No,
So
really,
yeah,
they're
yeah,
standing there,
yeah,
and I mean, a third of the
yeah,
movie are main characters are in pajamas, and it
yeah,
really sounds like they're not putting in the bare effort, but they're putting in a neutral effort to make sure Kevin still keeps giving them their Scrooge McDuck money. It's just,
yeah.
and I think people are catching on now, not like the right wing YouTube grifters that we make fun of all the time, who I'm sure are going to try and like turn this into the biggest scandal. It's really not. It's just a non-entity, and
I actually wouldn't be surprised if there's no scandal because I just in the sense that I don't think this movie will make much of a. I does not feel like there's much
but
interest or
remember,
hype.
this was going to compete with Dune.
Oh right, yeah, but
So, and I mean, there isn't in terms of the
yeah,
major, Cineplex circuit right now. You can rewatch Killers of the Flower Moon, which we talked about in a Do We
yes,
Recommend,
excellent
or
movie. Yeah.
you go to the indie circuit. And we will be talking about some of those.
I just connected. What movie are they talking? We're talking about the Marvels, the latest Marvel
The
movie,
latest
the
Kevin
latest.
Feige McDonald's
Yeah,
box of chicken tenders.
this one seriously really felt like one of those products or projects that corporations put together when they're trying to figure out how to just keep a certain brand going, but they don't know how to put any life into it.
Yeah, you know
So they
what?
just
That's an
slap it
excellent point.
together.
It's like Don Draper and all the guys from Mad Men sat around a room and were looking at like what their analysts said about targeting demographics, because the way things are structured, it feels like they had a little checkbox. It's like, we need this kind of person in the movie.
the
Check.
the one liners don't pop. The soundtrack is very bare bones. I don't even know who the composer was, but the score felt like your just run of the mill generic string section that you throw into these
And
things when
some
everything
electronic
explodes. The
in there. Again, since someone mentioned Vim Vender's latest, because he has released two films this year, Anselm, which we are going to talk about in a Do We Recommend coming soon. That one has an amazing original score that far outshine. You wouldn't have to put that amount of effort for a quote unquote documentary, and
Ben
that's 100 times more interesting than a movie that cost probably $100 million.
Benny says, I feel like the MCU has run into the issue of universe inflation. Iron Man was good because it took place in the real world. It was relatable. Now the world is so fantastical. No, you're
Excellent point. We were just talking
yeah,
about that. And I think part of it is Kevin Feige wanted Chadwick Boseman, who passed away a few years ago,
to
who
be
played
the
the,
head.
and
Yeah,
once he passed away, he still wanted to rake in that money. So they've just been throwing a lot of stuff, like one issues at the
yeah.
wall. It's completely disconnected.
And it has become an overly stuffed franchise. Well, for example, this movie. If you have not watched the Miss Marvel show on Disney Plus, or Secret Invasion, I
Or,
forgot,
or, WandaVision.
or WandaVision, you can still follow the basic plot because the plot, of course, there's
Well,
a
there's no
villain.
plot.
There's a villain who
There's a
wants
bad
to
guy must go
conquer.
boom, right?
Yeah, the villain wants to conquer the cosmos and all this stuff. But the smaller, finer details of why people are doing what they're doing and who got to where, how. If you haven't seen the Marvel shows, you're just going to be lost as to what's happening here. So they've created this overly bloated franchise machine where if you don't keep up with every element and pay for a Disney Plus subscription, you're going to be completely lost watching the movie. And I think it's a form of cynical commercialism, right? Where they just Feige and Disney just expect, well, of course everyone's subscribed to our stuff because we're Disney, we rule the world. So of course everyone is going to pay for this stuff to then go watch the movie. But I don't think audiences are going to have any kind of passion for this one. I don't think so.
No,
I don't.
let's say the average Joe, I think, yeah, they are starting to catch on now. In terms of a Cineplex experience, what will take over? I hope it's, regardless of what you think about Nolan. Nolan gets the project made that he wants with
Yes.
the budget of a Marvel movie, except Oppenheimer, which we saw in glorious IMAX way back in July, it's like, okay, this is what a studio movie used to be.
I did like in this movie, yeah, and even in this movie, the only two shots I liked was there was one 2 second shot that winked at the right stuff, and then there was one 2 second shot that kind of winked at I think it was like a rip off of Gravity. So it was like these two shots in the movie where the director's trying to wink at these past movies.
The director
Yeah.
and the animators who finished the sequence before Nia
Yes.
DaCosta, who directed this film, showed up on set.
But the rest of the movie is so, honestly, if you're gonna go see this to review it, bring a notebook because I don't think by next week I'll remember
No.
much of this movie. I'll
But you know what I won't remember? Thanksgiving and
Eli Roth.
Anselm, let alone movies we saw way back in May, like Los Colonos, which it's kind of funny. We keep right now.
Great
it's like
movie.
we're just revisiting the movie in our head.
Great
And-
Chilean
and-
film coming out in January in the States. It's played
Yes.
in Latin America, but it's premiering in the United States in January. I think here the English title is going to be The Colonists.
Yes,
For it.
but excellent movie, and
Yeah.
I mean that's part of why we do this show and part of our recommend series, because what we'll do in our next episode, we still need to figure out exactly which movies we'll talk about, but I think it would be interesting to show the balance of what is being released now and to show
Yeah.
what you can do with budget and what you can do with vision.
Yeah,
Because this is really a case study of the world if it was driven only by suits,
which
and-
it is, but
which it is.
But there's still some good
when you see it
movies
really
that get-
projected on the screen, where you get talented directors for hire instead of just a guy.
this was. I mean, well, there's not much more to say about it. It's a very throwaway MCU movie. The bonus scene, which we obviously can't spoil, points at how they're probably going to revamp the MCU.
How to bring people back to watch their McDonald's
That's
chicken
just-
nuggets.
Let's just say there's a very popular character in the bonus scene. But yeah, I compared to the better things, even the better popcorn movies that came out throughout this year, this one is just it's what it is. It's McDonald's, but it's an empty Big Mac box.
Yeah.
There's no Big Mac in the box. It's just the box.
And
Yeah.
for example, I mean, you guys have probably already seen it, but John Wick, major studio movie, what a delight to watch on the screen.
That was a fantastic action film. Beautifully shot. Keanu Reeves knows what he's doing in that movie
it's
and
vi-
does it well.
it's violent ballet.
It's
That's the way I can describe it.
so wonderful. And like we said earlier, The Holdovers is playing right now, so give that one a shot.
Please do. It's absolutely excellent.
I swear to God, if they bring Iron Man, according to Variety, they are thinking
They're
about
so
it.
desperate
So-
because nothing has worked.
According
Yeah,
to
it's a
Variety,
mess.
they are having
But,
high-level meetings of. You know what they need to do? Yes,
just stop for like 5 years.
Yeah, and these are popcorn films. I mean, that's what these things are. They're the equivalent of going to I don't want to say a carnival show, but something similar to that.
But
on
so was
Fridays.
Thanksgiving. But we had more. We spent the whole time in the car ride talking about Thanksgiving, and we walked out of the theater and we just looked at each other and we're like, "Yeah, that's exactly what you would expect from a movie like this."
No, right? No, exactly. So what I'm thinking is they need to just stop. Yeah, trying to pile everything up, and just refocus again on making good popcorn entertainment. Like they're better films. The best one of these movies this year was Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 because you sense the director's style and voice still
Within the framework of Marvel,
the Marvel stuff.
or even the first Iron Man movie. It's legitimately one of my favorite movies. And you go back and rewatch that, and you're like, okay, wow, they were out to prove something here. And even with the Avengers, they were starting to get into the factory formula towards Avengers Endgame, but Infinity War and Endgame really feel like, wow, this is a spectacle blockbuster,
They're
and it felt like a real pop culture moment.
they're kind of reaching that level of what where peak TV is at as well now, where you have a show that's a great idea, that's very well written and very well directed for one season, but because it's successful, you then have to stretch it out into three or four more seasons that begin to lose the charm and the
Like
energy and the
Walking Dead.
richness. Yes,
The
yes,
Marvel
yes.
is Walking Dead.
God, that's been on two for like what 13
They
years now
they
or
have
something.
5 different spin-offs.
Yeah, like
It's interesting.
because even the original has been on for like 14
Oh
years, right?
yeah,
Or
I don't
13 or
even know if they've
14
hit the
years.
finale, and
Yeah.
people are the people who watch it are Walking Dead because of how much they've sunk into it.
Yeah.
And I mean, look, I wouldn't have seen this movie, but it's a press screening, and
It
this
was
is the most we're
screening.
going to talk about it. I think when it comes to the end of the year list, we're going to completely forgot that we've seen this.
Yeah, I mean it's Marvel finally starting to really hit the dead end in content. But hey,
That's it.
there's still other good stuff coming out, which
And
we'll
we'll be
be talking
talking
about.
about some of them soon. We have a do we recommend, hopefully, that we'll record within the next couple days. And then we're still working on our big episodes. So Heat, we are still prepping. I know we've been
Michael
talking about it
Mann.
for a while, but it's a very exciting one. We'll schedule in somewhere one focusing on Waltz with Bashir and other films dealing with
The Middle
the
East,
Middle East. And
uh,
then our last
relevant, very relevant cinema.
very relevant subject matter, our last Chronicles of Man episode with his digital era, and then Ferrari,
And
the
Ferrari,
Christmas gift, and there are a bunch of other movies that we'll
time,
cover in some form, whether it's on Instagram or do we recommend. But
the rest of the year is already mapped out. But
hey,
thank
all
you.
I know, Silent Night, John Woo. Let's go. Let's
Oh yeah,
go.
oh yeah, with a as a dessert to Thanksgiving, which we saw.
No, that's Violent Night.
Oh yeah. Okay. Well, it's
Silent Night is the
it's
dessert.
a three course. It's
Silent
a
Night
three-course.
is the dessert for John Wick.
It's a three course meal. But thank everybody for joining us on this. Looking forward to Melody. Yes, lots of movies to talk about. Again, with the headlines right now being dominated by what's happening across the world. Some of our listeners might not be aware of the rich and long legacy of cinema covering that particular corner of the Middle East. Israeli and Palestinian
Yeah.
cinema has a long and rich legacy, which we'll be discussing in an
And
upcoming
American
episode.
British. So just to throw out a couple titles to give a little appetizer: Waltz with Bashir, which in my opinion is a masterpiece. Lebanon might be one too, and
Excellent.
a Palestinian one you gave. There were a
Omar.
couple. Omar.
There's many
And
great
then
ones.
from the American perspective, which everyone should watch because it's just very relevant. Alan Rickman's last performance, "Eye in the Sky."
And I'll add another extra one. The painter Julian Schnabel did a good one in 2009 called Miral, because he actually was married to a because of what? Oh, ask Sam Harris what he thinks of Waltz with Bashir, especially after his latest Making Sense podcast. Well, Sam hasn't really been making sense lately on the Middle East, but it'll definitely be interesting. Although I got to hear the new one. I did listen to his.
But if
his
he
previous
wants
one, yeah.
to debate us on his show, come on, man.
Yeah, but the films that we're going to be talking about are going to be very, very, very interesting and
Very heavy.
enriching. Hopefully,
We
Yeah.
will. I mean, everyone has their opinions on things, and we're gonna. It's a lot to rope in, and
I'd
we
love
want
to
to do
see.
it right.
I would love to see Sam debate Norman Finkelstein, if he ever sees this video. That would be like really cool. But yes, thank you for joining us, everybody. We will be bringing that up soon with a lot of continuing coverage of the fall season, which is going to be pretty stacked. Even as the SAG strike continues, they looked like there was going to be a deal this week, but when they looked at the final terms that the studios proposed,
No
They
good.
said nope. So the strike continues, which means, in a positive way, we're going to be talking a lot more about directors and
Absolutely.
the that angle of the filmmaking
Vin
process.
Vendors, you're next, buddy.
And Mike,
And Mike.
Michael Mann. But thank you for joining us, guys. Stay warm because it's pretty chilly out here right now.